Hey Shredders, Tavis here, and in this video we're going to explain what makes Ollies work, giving you the tools you need to better perform your Ollies, get more height, more control, and most importantly, more style. Because these are one of the most fun tricks you can ever do on the mountain, but you need to make sure that you're hitting the underlying fundamentals that really go and make this trick pop off. First one being making sure that you're having a slight bit of edge pressure. Heels, toes, doesn't matter. Not so much that your board starts turning, but just enough that you can go and start loading weight onto your snowboard without worrying about washing back and forth. Do this simply by adding a little bit of bend in your legs and keeping your upper body slightly shifted forward or slightly shifted back in correlation. The next really important body posture is making sure that your shoulders are squared. This means your shoulders are in line with the tail and nose of your snowboard. This is really important because if you let your chest open or close, it's going to make it so you start rotating as you try to generate your pop. For the actual Ollie motion itself, it starts with this leaned over position. This is where I'm going and shifting my whole upper body towards the nose of my snowboard, making it so my whole weight is shifted over this front foot. The reason why we're doing this is because we're going to want to do a rock motion of leaning forward and then leaning back towards our tails, because this will go and help us flex our board, getting it more snappy and more pop. Because the goal of an Ollie isn't going and popping up, it's going and flexing your board as much as you can and letting that spring you up back to level. But there's a few more things that go into play here. So first of all, what you need to avoid when shifting your weight forward, it's only a couple things, but it's really important. First of all, you need to make sure that your back is maintaining a straight line. If you start rounding, that's going to be a no-go because it will make it so you're weaker in the core and your weight is more set over your toe edge, causing you to drift when you jump and not get as much consistent power. We're trying to generate straight power off of our tail, so to do that, we need to make sure that our weight is staying stacked over the same center part of the board. So the other thing you need to avoid to make sure that you don't lose this is hinging at the hips. If you go and squat down, your upper body should come down, but your upper body should never go down, not in correlation of your lower body. From here, what you want to do is shift down into your squatted position. As you're going and shifting down into your squatted position, you want to go and start shifting your weight to your back foot. An important note here is you don't want to squat down too much. This is around the max amount of squat you want to do. That's because if you start getting lower than this, you're going to be over 90 degrees. And from that position, it's going to be really hard to keep your weight set over your toes, and you're going to start leaning backwards. You also just start losing effective range of motion if you go too low down. So you want to just go and add around this amount of bend in the legs. I call it like 33%. Then as you go and hit your maximum point of sit downage, that's when you start shifting your legs back and start popping upwards. So we're actually going exploding off the tail of our snowboard as we shift our legs back. This causes our front leg to go straight as our back leg keeps a little bit of bend. How we go and make sure that we don't go and land tail heavy is by making sure that we go and let our upper body shift back forward after the fact. We'll go and use another clip to go and show this principle a little bit more. But Ollies are basically all about connecting this smooth, predictable movement as easily and naturally as possible. You're not going to get much extra power of your snowboard by pushing harder with your legs, flexing your board harder. It's mostly coming from timing and fluidity. So that's why every time we do an Ollie, the first step is making sure that you're hitting these principles correctly, and from there you can start adding more power. A big thing is you're probably not going to be doing too many Ollies just on flat ground, probably just to practice. So this is the perfect kind of feature that you'll be doing an Ollie on. A little roller, not much kick, so you want to generate that height yourself. The reason why I'm getting so much height here is not because I'm going and jumping really hard, but instead because I'm thinking about pushing off the snow. See right here, my board is maintaining contact with this takeoff all the way into its last possible second. What this is doing is it's giving me a whole extra board length of air time. This is way more air time than you'll get just naturally trying to pop up. So every time you go and hit a feature like this, if you want max height, it's about maintaining max pressure with your board. So instead of thinking of trying to go and pop and lift yourself up off the ground, instead of think of yourself as pushing off the snow trying to go and keep your board in contact with it as long as possible until it snaps off the end. And this is a really good showing of what I mean about upper body positioning. As I go and shift my weight back onto my back foot and start popping up, that's when I go and let my upper body come back forward, making it so as my legs are straight, my upper body is slightly leaned towards that front foot. This is what's making it so my legs come up and naturally come back in line with my body. So recap on that, if you want power of your ollies, it's all about timing, less leg motion, and just doing everything connected. Here is another prime feature that you want to do an ollie off of, and because it's so flat, I can go and hit my maximum bend. So this is my absolute maximum ollie position. You can see that my chest is super low close to my legs. That's because I need to keep my center of mass over top of the center of my snowboard, and the only way to do that is to let that chest come down. But even though I'm so low, I'm still keeping my spine straight, not letting it round. This is called maintaining your stack position. And look at my glutes, still not completely 90. And then from there, as I go and pop up and extend my legs, I shift backwards, but as my legs start getting taller, I go and move my upper body back to center. And look at my arm positioning here. See how high we're getting? This is the maximum height you want to bring your arms. The reason why we're bringing them up like this is to help lift our body, lift our legs, bring everything together. But if you let your arms get higher than this point, it's going to actually disconnect your core muscle. Because even though I'm fully extended here, what's happening is I'm keeping that little bit of hinge forward, I'm keeping that little bit of angle, and that's letting me keep my core engaged and keep my center of mass over top of that center point of my board. And that's really what I'm trying to do on every single one of these ollies, is keep my weight in the exact same part of my snowboard on the takeoff, through the jump, and that'll make it so I land in the perfect spot into the landing. So here's a prime example of me performing the range of motion perfectly. I'd go and pop an ollie, and I maintain a stacked enough position to ollie each one of these times. So let's break down what's happening here. So I'm starting in a pretty lean back position. That's because I don't need much extra height, so I'm not using that extra lean forward to back rotation. Instead, I'm just jumping off my back foot, and pay attention to my leg bend and core bend. As I pop off, I'm keeping a little bit of bend in my legs. Fully extended legs take time to subtract and get back together, so you don't want to be using that onto a rail. So I'm maintaining a bit of bend, landing with a bit of bend, and see how neutral the position my upper body is. That lets me pop up for an ollie again. So this would be a great kind of ollie to go and start with. A very small predictable motion where you're just making sure to maintain contact with what you're taking off with your tail. So here is a really good ollie. This is what I'd be using off a jump, off of like anything for getting pop, and it's simply going for my neutral stack position, slightly shifting to my back foot, extending, and then letting my upper body come back to neutral, and that's letting me stay completely in control, coming back onto my board. But if you're normally hitting a rail, I don't actually recommend doing an ollie. It gives you way too much height. Instead, all you need to do is make sure that your board's maintaining contact with the snow. So watch here. Watch how little my legs bend here. Instead, I'm just focusing on keeping my tail in contact with the snow, because that naturally goes and puts the nose of my snowboard over top of a rail. That combined with speed will naturally sink me up to go on top of a rail. No ollie needed. And that's a really important thing to note with the ollies. When it's super fun to max boost an ollie off the side hit, ollies are all about finding transition and trying to get as little impact as possible. So here, I'm using a little bit more of an ollie because I'm going gap the rail. So you can see the legs get fully extended, but I'm still not trying to go and overpop myself to lose control. And this is really showing you that you can get a lot of height through this just through timing alone. So what's happening here? I'm not going and shifting from my front foot. Instead, I'm just shifting my weight to my back foot, letting my upper body come back forward, and then letting the kick and spring off the tail of my snowboard naturally pull my legs back up to me, allowing me to keep my upper body in this tight stack position, what allows me to land on the rails. Ollies get even more trippy when it comes to jumps. When you can ollie off a jump, it makes it so you have a lot smaller of a surface area to go and get this pop from. So here I'm doing an ollie off a jump, but because it explodes you off the tail, it really goes and leaves your upper body behind, making it a big motion. So ollies are really bad for trying to like combo tricks with. You really just want to be doing ollies alone. And if you are doing an ollie with a grab, you're going to need to go and make sure to really put the juice into it. So we have one more ollie here, and this will be the final note. Doing it off a jump with a grab. So with everything you learned in this video, watch what's happening. Weight shifted slightly on that toe edge, shifting down slightly towards that front foot, rocking to the back foot, maintaining contact with the snow, pushing off that lip. That's naturally snapping my board in the air. Arms high, but not too high, still keeping that constant bend, activation of the core. And then from there, I pull my legs up into the grab. If you are trying to grab your ollie, trying to do a trick, make sure to not cut your ollie motion short, because your ollie motion is what gives you control and gives you power. So that is ollies explained. This should be all the information you need to do a perfect ollie. Obviously, there's issues that can happen and occur along the way, but if you just focus on keeping that aligned body, shifting everything connected and smooth like this, it will give you a powerful ollie that will be really fun to take on the mountain. Give it a go, let me know how it goes, and let me know if you want more information on this trick or any others. I'm Tavis from Snowboarding Explained, and thank you for watching.